What was it like growing up from your childhood days?
I was told I was born in Kota Baru. I was not there to verify whether I was actually born in Kota Baru. Anyway, I grew up in Kota Baru. I went to a Malay school to begin with, like most people then. This was in the 40s, just before the war. And latterly, when the Japanese came and occupied our country after the 1941 war, we were shipped to a Japanese school. But hardly a few months there, where we had to learn how to sing Kimi Gayo and all that, and bow to the sun every morning. And we were then taken to the Thai school. It's odd enough in Kelantan, maybe some of you may not realize that Kelantan, parts of Terengganu, Kedah and Perlis were under the Thai rule before the British came, and it was ceded back to the British. And when the Japanese walked into Malaysia, or Malaya at that time, after the war, they agreed with the Thais that in the event they are given safe passage to Malaya, then some of these territories will be handed back to the Thais. And that's why Kelantan was under the Thai rule, and we had to go to the Thai school. So I was a really mixed up kid. And went to the Thai school. We had to start learning Thais. And of course, my late father was also a Thai student, and he was brought up in the Thai tradition, just like the first Prime Minister, Tengku Razaleigh, who was brought up in the palace in Bangkok under King Chulalongkorn, whom you see as a little boy in the movie The King and I. And that's why Tengku and people of that generation, including my late father's generation, all spoke Thai fluently and even wrote Thai. And when the British came back in 1945, after the Japanese surrendered, I was sent back to the Malay school, and hardly a year I was in the Malay school. I was sent to the English school when it was reopened in 1946 after the Japanese surrender. And of course, life was tough at that time. All of us couldn't get enough rice, no clothes. I remember my late father was considered as one of the top boys in Kelantan, and but we were subjected to ration all the same because there was not enough rice to go around, and even clothing we were also rationed, and the poorer ones were fortunate enough to get gunny sack material to cover themselves, and that's how life was. And food was difficult to get by, and of course with inflation, I remember my late mother used to go to the market, and she loved going to the market herself with gunny sacks of these banana notes, you see, and sometimes she had to carry 4 or 5 sacks of paper notes to go marketing, and would come back only with one small sack of things that she could buy from the market. Time was really hard, and it was not easy for people with no means or even no connections. My late father somehow or other had the protection of the Japanese, because being a senior gentleman in the state of Kelantan, he was given some kind of recognition and therefore some kind of protection. No privileges though. He was treated like any other. But that was life. But we could see that those who had befriended the British before the war suffered at the hands of the Japanese, particularly Chinese. And they were bundled into the lorries, and sometimes we don't hear of them again. And I remember also one night they came to our house. I had a governess who was looking after me, who had a young son who was about 15 or 15 and a half years old. And these military boys from the Japanese army just came into the house, and I think somebody must have told the Japanese that there was this young man living in the house. He was dragged away from our house against the pleading by my late mother, by our late father, but to no avail, and he disappeared. And we heard later on that he was taken to the death railway in Burma, but he never came back. That's how we were treated. But anyway, life during wartime was not as easy as you see today. Even going out of I live in a house which is now in the center of Kota Baru, and there's also a guard house in front of my house, not to guard us, but to guard the town actually. And every time we passed through, we had to bow to this Japanese. But some who won't or who didn't were slapped and kicked. And if they continued to resist, then they would be bundled into a lorry and taken away. That's how life was. And we could remember, because there is this bank building used to be owned by Mercantile Bank, which was part of the Hong Kong Bank. And we could hear people crying and wailing anytime you walk past that building, because they were being beaten and they were being tortured in this building. And I could still remember that.
Now, as a member of the royal family in Kelantan, was life very different from your peers in Perak and Selangor and Johor?
Well, we don't know them, because we are in isolation, so to speak, because we always regard people from other states, even from Terengganu, which is just a neighboring state, who come to Kelantan are considered as outsiders. So we don't have much of an interaction or exchange with people other than within our own community. And of course, it was very, very difficult to move anywhere, because there are not many roads. And if there are roads, there are so many bridges to cross. Ferries, we use ferries. I remember coming to Kuala Lumpur with my late father then. We had to cross about 9 ferries, and we have to wait hours before we can get onto the ferry. There was the one at Jirte, there was at Terengganu, there was at Kemaman, there was a ferry at Kuantan, there was a ferry at Temerloh, and so on, you know. There are so many ferries. Now, of course, it's so convenient. You don't want to go by crossing the bridge, you go by air.
So Malaya was not very united then, it was actually very separate states.
No, they are very separate. And Kelantan was also, under the British then, was one of the unfederated states where you have your own civil service, even to this day. But Perak, Pahang, Selangor, Negeri Sembilan are all federated states.
So after the Japanese period, life was very different, obviously, in the 50s and the 60s.
Yes.
What was it like in your teenage years going into young adulthood?
Well, after the war, it's not any better for some of us because of the insurgency, and curfews were imposed everywhere because there was this belligerency against people in towns as well as in rural areas, and you can hardly move anywhere freely without being checked, because there was this food denial program instituted by the British military administration in order to prevent drugs, medicine, food being given to the insurgents. So everywhere we went, we were stopped, we were checked, and unless we get special permit, we can't carry medicine, not even an aspirin. So you see, things are difficult, or were difficult, and we can't even carry food, definitely not, because for fear that we may be ambushed and food will be taken off our vehicles for the insurgents. So this was some of the hardship. But everywhere we went, we are also up against these checks and roadblocks mounted by the military and the police. And if you go against them, you can be hauled up and be detained under the Internal Security Act, which was then enforced.
Still is today.
Well, still is today. Still is today.
So going through the hardship in the teenage years, I would imagine you had your idols, people whom you looked up to, dreams that you had. Could you share some of that with us?
Boy, you don't like to listen to my dreams.
Or we can keep the dreams to the later part of the day.
Anyway, I have fond memories of my childhood days in schools. I had many friends. We didn't feel that it is Malay or Chinese or Indian. We mix very freely. And my house has a big garden, the one in Kota Baru, and it used to be called the Botanical Garden of Kota Baru, where people on weekends come to have photographs taken. And we also had a mini zoo. We had tigers in cage, we had bears, we had pelicans.
Tengku, this is at your home.
Yes.
This sounds like Michael Jackson's ranch.
Yeah, Kota Baru house. Because my late father was a lover of animals.
Yes.
And every now and then, whenever we get a new animal trap, he would send me to Johor to give this animal as a gift to the late Sultan of Johor, and that's how we got to know the people of Johor quite well. And also because my late father had a polo club, and I think that was the second polo club in Malaysia after the polo club of Johor. Later on, only Pahang family had the polo club, and we used to exchange horses, between the Johor family and my father's family. But it was so expensive, and when the Japanese came, they took all the horses, and didn't leave a single horse for our use. They took all the horses, and they took even the size with them as well. We had 2-3 Indonesians working to walk the horses for us every day. But we lose them all to the Japanese. But anyway, it was restarted after the war. Of course, my father had lost interest in the horses by then. But coming back to my childhood days, I was very lucky because I had my own football team, although I didn't play football very much. But I had friends who came and played football, and we had a tennis court. It's a lawn tennis, and a lot of my friends come to play tennis in the house, and badminton, and that's it. And of course, the zoo was an attraction to a lot of my friends to see all these wild animals. But my father was very fond of these animals. Somehow or other, he can play with these animals. Even the bears, which we are scared to get near to, and he was able to walk the animal, the bear, in the garden, and it didn't harm him. We were scared, but even the tigers, we had a pair of tigers, I remember that, and he was able to pat on the tiger's head when they come closer to the railings, and didn't harm him. But we lost a cookie. We had a Hainanese cook in the house who was not mauled by the tiger, but because he threw this meat for the tiger to eat, but somehow the one piece got stuck to the grill, and he tried to catch this meat to throw closer to the tiger, but the tiger pounced on him and scratched his hand, and it turned septic, and within 24 hours he was dead. And it was so poisonous. And of course, at that time, I think the hospital didn't have the kind of what do you call it? To help him, and he died. And I remember my late father made all of us, the children. I have 2 brothers, to walk behind the cottage, and gave him a funeral, and I had to walk behind the cottage until it was taken onto the lorry and taken for burial. It was an experience. A lot of my father's friends came along, and joined us in this procession.
This was in the 60s?
Oh, this was just after the war. Just after the war. That was in the late 40s. And also another incident was when we had a flood. We had this perennial flood in Kota Baru, and my late father used to have 4 or 5 crocodiles kept in the pond, very big pond. It's a Japanese garden. He had a Japanese garden, and one night the water, the whole garden was inundated with water. And he was worried stiff. He said, "Where are our crocodiles? How am I to know?" So anyway, we sent people looking for these crocodiles, but fortunately nobody was beaten by the crocodiles. And they were very big crocodiles, Anyway, that was part of the experience we had. Although I went to Malay College, but I stayed there for only a week in Malay College. I think not more than 6 days. I didn't like the hostel life there, and I don't like the kind of environment, because I was cooped up in this residential college. I was never a person that could be fenced in like that. So anyway, I left and went to Anderson School. In fact, I wanted to come to VI. I got admission into VI, but my late father said, no, don't get out of Perak because you must remain in Perak, because he was the chairman of the board of governors of the Malay College. He said, at least I can keep an eye on you. So you stay in Perak. And that's why I was sent to Anderson School.